Welcome to our school's podcast.
So here we are, it is 2018, we're in the Assembly Hall, we've got our Year 10s in the hall, and we've got Mr. Adley and Mr. Guy. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Adley and Mr. Guy. Very willing sports here today. As you can see on the wall, Year 10, we've got this massive big course here of copper wire, copper piping, and in my hand I've got a handle with a little hook on it which is also copper. Now, should I touch the copper hook with the copper wire, it should ping, but it will also send a little bit of an electric shock to Mr. Guy and Mr. Adley's thumbs. Miss Gamble has rigged this up, but she tells me it's just a little static. Sorry. Miss Gamble did warn me it was just a little static shock. So I have to be very, very careful here, okay? I can't let this handle touch the copper wire. Alright, my hands are a bit sweaty here. Oh, sorry. Now, we get the idea, so I'm going to get started here. I have 30 seconds. Let's have some dramatic music to get me started here. Here we go. Just get past this first corner here. Done. Nice and quiet, please. Because I don't want to be distracted. Sorry. Don't want to be distracted here. These two do not need any distraction. Just let me... Oh, this is tricky. How long have I got left? Oh goodness. I'm going to have to speed up. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to speed up here. Get past this last loop here. Sorry, lads. I'm sorry. I'm done the time. Sorry, lads. Sorry, my time's up. The Year 10s are laughing at. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to set it down here because I'm done. Sorry, lads. Oh dear. Mr. Guy's crying. Start the podcast.
Welcome to the Lurgan Junior High School podcast.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast.
Thank you to Mr. Guy's son, Alfie, there, and we're going to hand straight over to Max Kearney from 8A6, and Max is going to tell us what's coming up on this week's episode of the podcast.
Thanks, Mr. Lunn. Up this week in the podcast, we have Mrs. Kerr on the phone talking about life in lockdown with our school counsellor, Deborah Griffith. They are joined by Mark Knox and Rick Preston from Aspire and Reach. In a week where the Year 10s found out where they are going next year, past pupils Oliver Law and Zoe Blevins discuss what to expect at Lurgan College and Craigavon Senior High School. Year 10 pupils Bethany and Goda have a go at two-word tango, with Year 8 Catherine Walsh taking on Mr. McFarland in the wheel of challenge. Mr. Lunn and Year 8 Jonathan Werner deliver some penguin jokes, whilst Miss Heasley and Mrs. Hamilton play a game of Guess Who. The podcast closes every week with a driveway catchphrase, and this week Mrs. Gordon is taking on Mrs. Irwin. Thanks, Mr. Lunn.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast.
Good man, Max. Thank you very much indeed for that. Now, I'm not going to go through what Max has already said, but you're very welcome to the 4th Lurgan Junior High School podcast. We have a packed schedule for you today, as Max has already told us. It has now been 8 weeks since we have been in school, and parents, pupils, teachers, everybody is having to adapt to our new normal, and it has taken an awful lot of adjusting, and some of us are getting there, and it looks like there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel now in the next couple of weeks, so we'll focus in on that. But without going into too much detail, we thought we would get a few people on the podcast this week to maybe explain a little bit about their profession and about what they're dealing with on lockdown, and maybe some little ideas of how we can adjust to our new way of living, really. So we had Deborah Griffith in with us, with Mrs. Kerr and myself, who is our school counsellor and who also works for Links Counselling. So Deborah was in, and along with Deborah we also had Mark Knox, who works for Aspire NI, and we had Rick Preston, who works for Reach. If you don't follow any of them on Instagram or Facebook, can I ask you to maybe head over to their social media pages and give them a follow? I know that they would really appreciate your support. It was also a big week for our Year 10s last week. They found out where they are off to for Year 11, and it has been a really difficult couple of weeks for our Year 10s. They had put an awful lot of time and effort into their studies for it all to be cut just short of their transfer examinations. and they still don't know really what next year holds for them in terms of what school will look like. But we know wherever they go next year, they will be a success. They have been a tremendous year group, a really wonderful year group, and as a staff we're very disappointed and sad that we won't get to give them the send off that they really, really deserve. But we thought it would be beneficial to get Oliver Law, who is currently year 11 in Lurgan College, and Zoe Blevins, who left us a few years ago and is now in her first year at Stranmillis. She went to Craigavon Senior High, and we thought it would be beneficial for them to come on the podcast this week and give a little bit of an insight into what school was like for them in both of those respective schools, just to give our year 10s a little bit of an insight into what they could expect next year. Other than that, we had some of the old games back again. We have two-word tango, as Max has already told us, wheel of challenge, we have driveway catchphrase, and Jonathan Werner stopped in to give us a few jokes. It is a jam-packed podcast. I hope you really enjoy it. If you haven't given us a follow yet at LJHS_podcast on Instagram, can you please go and do that now? We'd love to see our numbers rise for that. If you know somebody that's in our LJHS family and maybe hasn't listened to the podcast yet, why don't you copy and paste in the link and send it on to them and tell them to have a listen. But this is the last you'll hear from me until the end of the podcast. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever time of the day it is, you sit back, relax and enjoy. And I hope this provides a little bit of distraction for you currently.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast.
Mrs. Kerr, I'll come to you first. From a school point of view, I know there's an awful lot of work going online, and I suppose that is us as teachers making sure that this scenario is as normal as it can be for our pupils. We are realistic as well.
Yes, I think the massive thing, well, for me, and I'm not in the social media world the way that our young people would be, but the thing that I found that just put me nearly really stressed me out at the start was just my phone ping with notifications, and I thought, I can't cope with this. Some days I get through a good amount of work and I think, well, that was a good day, and other days I think, oh my goodness, I haven't achieved very much here at all. I've tried just to make myself get into a reasonable routine. I think that's been very important for me, Mr. Lunn, that I get up in the morning at a sensible time, get myself sorted and have my breakfast, and then say, right, and I go and I have my work place, in a place where I know that's my workstation, and when I go there, that's work, and when I come away from there, that's me being mummy, wife, whatever it happens to be. I'm in my family then, and I have to try and switch off.
Deborah, would you say that trying to get in a bit of routine again is quite important?
Absolutely. I mean, what Mrs. Kerr is saying there about adapting, we're all adapting to new circumstances, and so whatever routine and structure that we can keep in place is going to help us so much with that. And Mrs. Kerr has modelled that lovely, how she has a set time to begin and finish her work, and then a time to begin putting the role or the hat on as being a mummy or being a wife. It's so important to try and keep a little bit of routine in place.
Yeah.
If we can have a few goals in place and let those who live with us, those who are around us, know what our goals are. So for myself, it's the 10,000 steps a day.
Me too.
And so I have told who I live with that you need to keep me accountable to this, and having that goal set. And then whenever I do that, when my phone pings 10,000 steps, I feel such a sense of achievement in that. Yeah. And that is part of my routine now each day, to get that in and get that done. Something we talk about in counselling is the 5-minute rule. So it's to start to get that ball of motivation rolling, because once it's going, usually it builds a bit of momentum and it keeps going.
Yeah.
So
that go.
So that just looks like trying something for 5 minutes. So if it is your work or if it's going for that walk, try it for 5 minutes, and then see where that leads you, because very often it will then encourage you to keep going.
Yeah. Deborah, last week we had Lila, Grace and Martha on the podcast, who are both in year 9, and Lila Grace had said that she actually works to her timetable, so she actually
perfect.
Period 1 on a Monday, if she has history, she works for 40 minutes on the history and she doesn't exceed that. So if she doesn't get finished in that 40 minutes, she closes and moves on to the next subject.
That's it.
Mrs. Kerr, you can slap me on the wrist here if I shouldn't have said this, but they don't even have to do their 8 subjects that day either.
Yeah. No, I think you need to do what works in the context of your family, because maybe not everybody has access to a device at all those times of the day. So you have to work also within the confines of what is works for your family. And I think that's really important. But the really important thing for me is that you don't get yourself really anxious or really stressed, because that is not what we want. We want you to do what work you can do. And if you're finding it tough, let us know.
And Deborah, would you say, just based in your line of work, would you say there are a lot of different experiences that people could potentially in a scenario like this be dealing with on a regular basis?
Boredom is a huge thing that I'm hearing a lot, and I suppose loneliness and maybe fear or stress around the COVID-19 and that. So these are all, and of course they're all normal feelings to have, and it's fine to have those, but what those feelings can do sometimes is push us into a bit of a corner where we want to isolate ourselves, or will we feel so frustrated with those around us that we just want to stay away from them, and stay in our bedrooms a lot of the time, and that's a wee bit unhelpful.
So really, we're looking at getting yourself into routine, getting yourself up nice and early, eating well, exercising well, finding a place to work, building in momentum, setting yourself little daily targets, communicating. If you're frustrating people, communicating with your family, letting them know what you're doing and how you're feeling, journaling, trying different things that you maybe never thought you would do before. I never thought I would do a podcast, and yet here we are in week 4. So try something a little bit different.
And being kind to yourself, I think, as well. Being kind, and speaking positively over, who you are and how things are at the minute for you, and that it's challenging for all of us. And we want to be there to support you through it.
Absolutely.
Super.
So keep the line of communication open.
Yes. With a wee tagline at Links, and it is "No one journeys alone." So I think that sort of sums up what we're trying to say.
Definitely. 100%. Listen, thank you both. Thank you both very much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast.
Mark, I'll just come to you first. I hope you're keeping well. Have you found anything in particular quite difficult about the restrictions and lockdown, etc.?
Yeah, I suppose at the start, I was thinking that I had all this time, that I was going to do so much and achieve so much, and I was going to, I was going to be ripped. All the working out I was going to do, and I was going to also be the cleverest man alive. All the books I was going to read, and you end up you just feel some sort of weird sense of tiredness all the time for me, and you don't do any of these things, and then you feel bad about yourself that you've spent all this time. I mainly sit in the same spot on the same seat all day. So you can end up just getting generally tired and worn out, but not understanding why, because you're not doing anything.
Yes.
So I suppose for me, I've just been getting tireder as times go on, and I get a lot of energy from people as well. From being around people, and I'm around Heather, my wife, because we live together. That's what happens when you get married. So she's here. But for not seeing anybody else is hard for me, because I'm an extrovert.
Yeah, I would definitely be sympathising with that. I very much need to be around people. Rick, what about you? Anything you're...
Yeah, I think it's the same as everyone. It's had its ups and downs. I have loved. I've married and 3 kids at home, so I've loved the space that it's created for them, even with all of the homeschooling stuff and going on. Just a bit of time with them that's been really precious. So in the middle of all of this chaos going on around the world, and as horrific as it's been, there's been something beautiful about getting time with family. So I've really tried to be protecting that as much as possible. But it is strange that we just have this ability to make ourselves busy doing stuff, and that's why I'm really trying to fight against a wee bit. We can just, you get to the end of the day, you feel tired and you feel exhausted, and you're like, oh my goodness, what did I fill that with today? So,
Mark, if you could just, obviously you do an awful lot of work with Aspire in our school as well. What advice would you pass on to them?
Yeah, even just to be reaching out to their friends and having proper conversation at this time.
Yeah.
Because speaking to some young people, I've talked to some young people who are just playing the PlayStation all day.
Yeah.
And then even having a conversation can be difficult, and everything seems more difficult, whether it's just a conversation or... So when it comes to trying to study again or trying to do anything like that again, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yep.
if you're not used to stimulating yourself in some way. So have conversations with your friends, phone them up, even at home if you can, with your family. Just be trying to have conversation and stimulating your mind in some way. Don't just be doing one thing all day. It's good to take a break and to do those things, but not to be doing those all day, because it's going to be really, really hard to readjust to learning and to being with people.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Rick?
I think give yourself permission as well to have an off day in this. I think all of us, we get on weekend and we have an off day of that. You know, some days this is just harder. It's just harder, and we're just more frustrated with it. And we just have to own that and know that it happens. And it could be that it's happening for your mum today, you know, and it's her off day. Give her a break, because it could be your off day tomorrow. You know, it would be a wee bit of what I'd be thinking in it all.
Yeah. Just to finish off a bit light-hearted here, I got a few of our pupils to post into the podcast Instagram page there any unpopular opinions that they had. One of the big ones here, somebody likes pineapple on a pizza. Mark?
I do like pineapple on pizza. In fact,
I'm totally the same. I'm totally the same. I know that this is an unpopular choice, but I have no problem with a wee bit of pineapple on the pizza.
And I was in South Africa last summer and went to this pizza shop, and I was having all sorts. Like, I had an avocado on my pizza. Anything fruit based on a pizza is good.
Oh dear, bless us. Well, so you're in that group there. I can't remember who it was sent that in, but you both are in that bracket. Here's another one. I'm very much against this: red sauce on any fry food material. So if you're having sausages,
you're not allowed red sauce on your actual fry.
I'm a brown. I think it has to be brown sauce.
Oh no, red sauce. I'm totally the other category. Mate, I don't know if we're going to be friends at the end of this.
Mark,
when I was a child, I didn't really like lots of my food. Not anymore. I used to be a very plain eater, but I like red sauce. I put it on everything. I put red sauce in my soup. I put it on salad. I put it on everything.
Avocado.
Everything. Only thing I ate was red sauce flavored anything.
I ended up at the doctor's because I had real severe stomach pains, and it was connected in with too much red sauce. So yeah, I'm in that category too.
I hate going for a fry, and you see if it's not even HP. You see if it's that gloopy.
Oh yeah, no, you can't do that. You can't do that.
HP alternative, you know.
I always thought I didn't like brown sauce, and then I was actually at a Reach event once in Brownlow Castle,
and we served you some really cheap brown sauce, didn't we?
Well, I was dipping my nuggets into what I thought was barbecue sauce, and after a while I was in conversation and went, this doesn't taste like normal barbecue sauce, and I realised that I was eating brown sauce, and I did enjoy it.
Love Island being cancelled is the best news we've had in weeks. No.
I think this is where me and Rick will disagree.
I'm not a fan.
Mark, I'll let you go first.
Oh, see, I'm not. I know me and Rick will be the opposite here. I'm a big Love Island fan.
Yeah.
But I'm not the kind that will now go and watch the old ones on Netflix or whatever. I think that's strange. I like to be involved. I vote every episode. I vote on everything. Get the app, do the whole thing. So
Mark actually was chatting to me beforehand. The reason that he was wanting to get ripped over lockdown is that he's going for the auditions for it. It's a big ambition of lockdown.
Yeah.
What about you? Are you a Love Island man?
I am, but I don't know whether it's a bit of FOMO. I don't know whether it's a fear of missing out, you know, that so many people talk about it, and I almost feel like if I'm not involved by watching it, there's a fear of missing out, you know. But I know people, you know, very close to me and to Mark there and to yourself, Rick, that even host Love Island parties and things, you know, for the launch party, and the Carsons would be big fans of those kind of parties.
I would imagine, yes.
But listen, thank you both so much for taking time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, speak to you later.
Cheers, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast.
So we are joined on the podcast now by Oliver Law, who left the junior high last year. I had the privilege of teaching Oliver history for 3 years, and Oliver has been at Lurgan College in year 11 this year, and obviously up until school was closed in March there, was making his way through his GCSEs, the start of his GCSEs. Oliver, how are you?
I am good, thank you.
basically our year 10s found out this week where they're off to next year, and so we've had a few people on the podcast to sort of give them an idea of what life might be like in year 11. What was one of the biggest differences you noticed from leaving us to September, October, November of year 11 in the college?
Well, like one of the biggest differences was just the way they just introduced us to everybody. Like all the teachers were extremely nice to us.
Yeah.
And like every single one of them supported us and helped us just settle down, and they helped us all settle in really quickly, and it was all really easy. And like for anybody who is going to the college next year, like just don't be worrying about it, because everybody is very nice.
You're sort of saying there, you know, everyone was helping you settle in very well, which is brilliant. In terms of the layout of the school and the size of the school, would you say it's considerably smaller than the junior high?
Yes, it is quite a wee bit smaller than the junior high, but like it's great that it's smaller, because then you do get to know everybody.
Yes, that's good. So there's like a little sort of tight-knit community, family sort of feel about it.
Yeah.
Are your classes a wee bit smaller, Oliver, in any of your subjects?
Well, there is a couple of smaller ones. My smallest one being my computer science class, where there is only about 15 of us in it.
That's good. So that's quite nice as well.
Yeah, that would be the smallest class, and you get plenty of help in that kind of class. But in my main class, I'm pretty sure there's 22 of us in it.
Okay, so that's quite similar from your time, even in the year 10 as well.
Yes, it is very similar.
What have you really enjoyed about being in Lurgan College?
I've enjoyed getting to know all the teachers, and there's also after school activities. SU, I went to that, and I just really enjoyed going to SU, and there was a couple of trips, so there was as well. If
you could go back to year 10 last year and give year 10 Oliver any advice, what would you say to get our year 10s into the correct frame of mind for hopefully going back into school in September?
Don't be like anxious about going to the college. Everybody will support you. All the teachers will support you and help you get settled in, and if you have any questions about the college or anything, they will answer your questions and they'll help you. Don't be like worrying about moving on to the college from junior high.
Would you say that going into year 11, they do need to go in and sort of, if you know the metaphor, sort of hit the ground running? You need to get yourself into the way of things pretty quick?
Yes, you do. You are starting your GCSEs, so you do need to like get focused and get all the work done, I guess.
Yeah, get the mind in gear.
Yeah.
Listen, Oliver, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
No worries, anytime.
And we'll hopefully speak to you soon.
Yes, I'll see you some other time then.
Yes, right, Oliver, take care.
Alright, thank you.
Bye. Okay, so up next on the podcast here we have Zoe, who was a pupil with us in year 10 when I first started in the junior high, actually, would you believe? One of my first years teaching in the junior high. And Zoe is coming on the podcast today to give us a little bit of insight into what life was like for her in Craigavon Senior High School. Zoe, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yes, not too bad. Now, as I said to you just before we came on here, you know, our year 10s this week have found out that they're off to obviously different schools in year 11 next year, and one of the first questions anybody would ask is, when you moved to the senior high in year 11, what was the big difference you noticed from then to sort of the junior high in year 10?
So basically whenever I left Lurgan Junior High, I went to Craigavon Senior High, as you were saying, and I found it was a lot smaller of a school than the junior high.
Yeah.
Everyone was on the same sort of academic level, which I found quite refreshing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then where you can choose your own GCSEs as well, so you're actually choosing subjects that you enjoyed.
Would you encourage, you know, I suppose, your best picking subjects that you do enjoy?
Yeah. I always find if you enjoy a subject, you're more willing to sit down and learn it. If you have a passion for something, choose them subjects. Don't choose something that you think, oh, I'm going to be able to get a job with this, because if you don't really enjoy a subject, you're not going to want to study it.
And I mean, as you said, you know, one of the big things you noticed was it was much smaller than the junior high in Craigavon Senior High. But what did you particularly love about your 2 years there?
Well, to be honest, we had the best crack in the senior high.
Good.
However, I also loved the support we got from the teachers. If they saw you wanted to do well, they give you every chance that they possibly could to make sure that you got what you needed. Like, them teachers would have bent over backwards. I had a maths teacher who printed off every past paper possible for me, and they held after school maths, English and science classes to 6 p.m, which was free tutoring for us. So
Wow.
that was quite a big bonus, and that's how a lot of us actually got through our GCSEs.
Sounds like quite a wee community, quite a family is created there as well.
Yeah, you find though with a smaller school, you seem to know everybody.
Yeah.
You know, in the junior high, there was people in your year, but you know, there were so many people you didn't know everyone's name. In the senior high, we knew everybody, and it was sort of a family. It wasn't wee cliques, it was more a big group.
Where has your path taken you since you left the senior high?
So once I left senior high, I sort of knew that A-levels was not for me, as I panicked under exam conditions, as a lot of people do, which is normal. So I went to Lurgan SRC and did a level 3 cash diploma in childcare, because I knew that I wanted to work with children. Like, that was my dream since I was no age.
Yeah.
So this cash diploma let me actually study to be a classroom assistant. I went to SRC for 3 days a week, and then I worked in a wee local primary school for 2 days.
Brilliant.
I also got the opportunity to go over to Malta and teach in Malta for 2 weeks.
My goodness.
Which was fantastic. It was the best experience ever. So I just applied for uni, and I applied for a couple of universities in Liverpool and Stranmillis in Belfast, and got into Stranmillis. So I've just finished my final year in Stranmillis.
Brilliant. What is your plan then for the future? What does the future hold, do you think, for you?
Yeah, so as soon as I finish Strand here, I'm going to go on to Liverpool to do my PGCE to make me a qualified teacher.
Brilliant.
And then my plan is just to follow the dream and hopefully become a primary 1 teacher.
And what a dream.
Yeah, can't wait.
I mean, you know, from the moment you left the junior high, you know, and you've had this vision, and you've mapped out the road that you wanted to take to get there, and through hard work and showing people that you had this determination to do well and do the best you could, you've got there, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Thanks, Zoe. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast.
We have Bethany Williamson and we have Goda here as well from 10A8, who have joined us on the podcast this week to play 2 Word Tango along with Mrs. Kerr. This is very enjoyable and very stressful, but it's good fun nonetheless. And our first topic is going to be any film or TV programme.
Right, okay.
So
No.
any film. It can be a Disney film, it can be a film that's in the cinema, it can be... Do you remember the cinema?
No.
Very vaguely.
And it can be any TV programme at all, okay? So,
no.
so it's going to go me, Mrs. Kerr, Bethany, Goda, and then back to me again, okay? Oh. Titanic.
Cinderella.
Cheaper by the dozen. The Notebook.
Ghostbusters.
The Piano.
Teen Beach Movie. Goosebumps.
EastEnders.
Laurel and Hardy.
High School Musical. Spider-Man.
The Chase.
Bugs Malone.
The Game Plan. Hannah Montana.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Beauty and the Beast.
Cinderella.
Ah! Has
Frozen.
happened? Oh!
Oh.
Disney. We're both Disney ones. Bethany. No,
Yep.
yes, that was Bethany, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
That's a good start.
We were brilliant.
That is a good start for all the
Yeah.
pressure and anxiety that is filled with this game.
Yeah.
Right, here we go. Here's topic 2.
Oh, right, okay.
Colours of the Rainbow.
What?
Now, when I say Colours of the Rainbow, that restricts us to about 9, but I'm going to say colours from around the world.
Oh.
We're like,
So any colour.
Any colour at all. Indigo.
Red.
Pink. Violet.
Blue.
Green.
Purple. Blue. Did I say it again?
Right, let's go for our last one here. We'll go for musicals.
Oh no.
Okay.
It's a difficult one. Grease.
Sound of Music.
Les Mis.
Les Mis.
Wicked.
Matilda.
I just drew a blank. I looked out the window and I lost my train of thought.
Oh.
There's
I
nothing
love
in my head.
I love that Bethany deliberately tried to wind you up there, Mrs. Kerr.
I did.
Yeah.
That threw me too. I thought, and I've taught her French, and she still says Les Mis.
Right, well, we'll go for one more.
Oh, wait, of the same thing.
What about if we just go for teachers from school?
Oh right, okay.
Oh no, right, okay. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Mrs. McGuinness.
Mrs. Wright.
Mrs. Marhead. Mr. Black.
Mrs. O'Reilly.
Mr. McCoy.
Mrs. Kerr. Woo! Mr. Adley.
Mr. Logan.
Mr. Lund.
Mrs. Nesbitt. Mr. Wright.
Oh no!
You're not right.
Was that Coda again?
I said that already.
I think Mrs. Kerr said that in her first round.
I know it's really hard. There's a lot to think about.
I find right. We'll go again here. We'll go from where we left off very quickly. I think it's me. Right, are we ready?
Okay.
So we can't.
Are we starting like over so
No.
that we can say whatever to each
No,
other?
we'll have to think of teachers that we haven't said. Right, here we go. Mrs. Dugan.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Miss Hannah. Miss Gordon.
Mr. Lauder.
Mrs. Carson.
Miss Gamble. Mrs. Kennedy.
Mr.
I didn't hear this. We said that one before.
Moi. C'était moi.
It was Mrs. Kerr again.
Yes,
brilliant.
sorry.
Brilliant. Well, girls, listen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Girls, thank you for this, for inviting me on. I will
No
never
problem.
for that.
And you look after yourselves, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
You too.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right,
Bye.
see you soon. Bye.
Good to see you. Good to hear you. Bye.
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 Thanks for tuning into our podcast.
This week we've got the equally competitive Mr. McFarland against one of his own form class here in Catherine Walsh. Now, Catherine, it's good to have you on the podcast. How do you plan? What does your day look like from Monday to Friday?
On a Monday morning, I write a list of what needs to be done, and then I write down the due date and I work it in what needs to be done first, and then I work my way through it and get it all done, making sure it's all done on time.
Okay, and then would you have time to go and do other things? So would you go and...
Yeah, I go and I play the piano, and I go on my trampoline and cycle sometimes. And
Cycle on the trampoline? No?
no.
No, right,
While,
okay.
while playing the piano, Captain, that's very impressive.
Mr. McFarland, what have you been up to this week?
I tend to play the piano while riding a bike backwards through mist with my eyes closed.
Yes.
So,
Yes. You be
I'm very
careful.
proud
Your
of
form
Captain here
class,
to follow me in my footsteps.
your form class will be asking you to do that next year now. You need to be careful. Right, so let's have a go at the Wheel of Challenge here. There are a number of topics on the wheel that Mr. Poots has created for us for the podcast. I'm going to give it a spin. Catherine, you're going to be up first on the Wheel of Challenge here, so I'm just going to give it a spin. Spins, and it lands on... Now, would you believe this? This is as if with your geography teacher here and your foreign teacher, it has landed upon, Catherine, how many countries you can list inside 30 seconds.
That's a scorcher.
Right,
that's music to my ears.
Let's see, Miss McFarland, how many do you think Catherine will get through in 30 seconds?
Ooh, well, there's 195 countries in the world, so I reckon if Catherine was to do one... I reckon, Catherine, if you got anywhere between 15 and 20, I'd be very impressed. I'm gonna go 18. I'm gonna think big.
Right, I'm gonna go 17. Catherine, how many do you think you'll get through?
I think I'll probably get about 20 or so.
20. Oh. Right, okay, so in the 30
ambitious.
In the 30 seconds, if Catherine gets 20 or more, she gets the point. And if she doesn't get 20, between Mr. McFarland and myself, whoever's closest gets the point. Okay, Catherine?
Yeah.
Right, your time starts 3, 2, 1, go.
America, Canada, China, Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, India, Portugal, Spain, Malta, Moldova, France, Germany, Estonia, Ukraine, Monaco, Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia,
and that's
Italy,
time. That is time.
Russia.
Well, wow. That was 21. Wow. 21. That's incredible.
Oh, I'm going to struggle to beat that no matter what my questions are.
Right, Mr. McFarland, now you I'm going to spin this wheel. There are 2 categories on here I think you would like, but we'll see what goes here. So I'm just going to spin the wheel. And it is going to land on... Right, it has landed on States of America. So 50 states for Mr. McFarland to list and 30 seconds to do it. And Catherine, how many do you think Mr. McFarland will get through?
I think he could probably get about 18.
Oh,
18. I'm gonna go for 20.
No pressure.
Mr. McFarland, how many do you think you'll get through? So Catherine said 18, I've said 20, you're saying 19?
I'll go 19, yeah.
19. Oh, it's all to play for here. It's all to play for. So Catherine's on the 1 point, and this is to level it up or for Catherine to win it. Okay, Miss McFarland, your time starts 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so we've California, Washington, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New York, Maine, New Jersey, Washington DC, Michigan, Nevada, New Hampshire, Vermont.
And that is time. That is time. And that was 22.
Oh, yes!
22. Catherine, what are your plans for the rest of today and the weekend?
Well, I'm probably going to go and play some piano and do some
on
exercise.
Your trampoline? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mr. McFarland, what about you?
Mr. Lunn, a wee bit like yourself for the staff, I run a quiz for my family.
Oh, yes.
Every Saturday, so I'm going to spend Friday doing that. It's nice having the day off so that we can do that as opposed to cramming it in on Saturday morning, so I'll probably do that this afternoon.
Very good. Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you both for coming on to the podcast, and look after yourselves, and hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, Mr.
Yeah.
Lunn.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mr. Long.
Right, Catherine. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast.
Jonathan, it's really good to have you on the podcast. How have you been doing in our lockdown scenario without school? What does your typical day look like, Jonathan?
Well, when I get up in the morning, I usually just get up, start work at 9, and work, and then eventually once I get so many things done, then I just have a small break, maybe head outside, play a bit of badminton or frisbee.
Very good. And then I hope you're not doing any work late on into the evenings. I hope you're taking the evenings for yourself. And have you been watching any films or anything at the minute, Jonathan?
Yeah, a couple.
Any films you could recommend? Are there any films you could recommend to me?
Well, maybe Tom and Jerry and Robin Hood.
Brilliant. I might have to go and watch that later on now. Right, Jonathan, let's see if we can. So you have got, I think you've got jokes and I've got jokes. Would that be right?
Yep.
So I'm gonna go. I'll go first, and then you can give your joke after me, and then we'll go back and forth. And I think we should try and make it that the other person's not allowed to laugh. So if I laugh, you get a point.
Okay.
And if you laugh, I get a point.
Yep.
Does that sound fair?
Yep.
Right, here we go. Here's my first joke, Jonathan. Why don't you ever see penguins in Great Britain?
I don't know.
Because they're scared of whales. The old country. Oh, he's not laughing. He's not laughing. Right, Jonathan, your joke, up you go.
Right. What do you call a penguin without an eye?
What do you call a penguin without an eye?
A pen gun.
I can't hold it in. I can't hold it in. How do penguins make a decision? They flip a coin. He's laughed. He's laughed. He's laughed.
I saw that one as well. So I offer it is. First time I saw it, I did not expect it.
So that's 1-1. Right, you're up, Jonathan.
Right. What do you call 500 penguins in Trafalgar Square?
Oh my goodness. I've absolutely no idea.
Lost.
I'm terrible at it. I laugh at all of these. I may as well just give you the points. That's too lost. Right, here's my third one. Are you ready? This is a favourite of mine. What do penguins like to eat?
I don't know.
Burritos. Oh, he's stone cold. He's cold. He hasn't laughed at that one. He's in the lead. Jonathan's in the lead, 2-1. Jonathan, over to you.
How did the penguin pass his driving test?
Say that again.
How did the penguin pass his driving test?
Go on.
He winged it.
Oh dear. They're too good. They're too good. Jonathan, listen, I think you've definitely won that. You're the joke king here, I think. What is your plan for the rest of the day, Jonathan? Tell me you're finished all your work for the day.
Well, nearly. I just need to take a photo and that's it.
Well, listen, you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, Jonathan, and I'll hopefully see you soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
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 Thanks for tuning into our podcast.
We have Mrs. Hammond and Mrs. Heasley here who have agreed to come on against their, I wouldn't say against their will, but they've agreed to come on. Willing participants would be fair to say, is that right?
I think so, yes. Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton, you're going to go first. What I'm going to get you to do here is that I'm going to tell you a story, and basically I'm going to get you to say I am. Okay, so here we go. Mrs. Hammond, I need you to listen very carefully to this story. Some of my classes might have heard this. Mrs. Heasley might have heard this story. I'm not too sure. But we're journeying back in 2007 here, and it's July, and I'm at a festival, and I'm standing at a coffee stand with a friend of mine. And lo and behold, somebody walks past me who is in my year, or who was in my year in school. I had just left school about a year. And I said to my friend, there's Timmy, there's a friend of mine, a fella that I went to school with. And the guy standing beside me said, well, why don't you go and say hello to him? And I thought to myself, as if that was some sort of challenge, I thought to myself, well, I will go and say hello to him. Now, any normal person, I must stress at this point that I didn't really know Tim that well, but any normal person at this point would have gone, Mrs. Hammond, you're not listening to me.
No.
There we go. I thought to myself, I was like, I think Mrs. Hamilton might actually twig on here.
This is not the game we had planned to play.
Now we did agree to play a game here, and we're gonna play this. This is a good one. I bumped into a member of Lurgan Junior High School in Tesco's last week. Miss Hammond, Mrs. Dugan were able to guess the person that I bumped into a couple of weeks back in the podcast. Now you can ask me questions one at a time, but I'm only allowed to answer yes or no.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Mrs. Hammond, I'll let you go first.
When you bumped into this, was this a meal that you bumped into in Tesco?
No.
Okay. So, is it a teacher? A
Yes.
male teacher? A female teacher?
Female teacher. Yeah.
Does this teacher work in your department, Mr. Lunn?
No.
Is this teacher scientific?
No.
No.
Scientific.
I know.
There might be, I suppose. Not to my knowledge.
Was this a drama English teacher?
Nope.
Ooh.
Mrs. Hammond's there with a wee notepad there scoring off. I think she got a list of names she's scoring off.
Maybe a French teacher?
No, not a French teacher. Again, they might speak a little bit of French, but not to our knowledge.
French, yeah. Was this obviously a maths teacher then?
It was a maths teacher.
Ooh.
I reckon, could I guess?
You can.
It's Mr. Black. The wee one? The junior one? The junior one?
No wee one.
The wee one.
It is not Mr. Black, the wee one. Did I say it was Did I say it was male?
I think we said it was female, was it?
Female, that's okay. No, that's okay.
Jeepers.
So,
Mrs. Paisley, sure go.
was it Mrs. McGuinness?
It was Mrs. McGuinness. You've nailed it. That's inside 10 questions there as well. That is impressive.
It's very good.
Very impressive. Mrs. Hamilton, what are your plans for the rest of the week?
The rest of the week, my husband's just put up a fence around both sides of the house and the front, so I've been contracted out to painting it, so I've got to finish that.
Lovely. And Mrs. Hazley, what about you?
Mornings are busy with school, and then in the afternoons I try to get a walk around the park and just relax.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you both for coming on to the podcast this week. I hope you have a listen and don't cringe too much, as you say there. But,
I think I will, but thank you very much.
Not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Lunn. Take care and keep safe.
Great to speak to you both. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast.
So, finishing the podcast this week, as we have done the past 3 weeks now, we finished with Driveway Catchphrase, and looking to join the elite club of Mr. Adley, Mrs. Walmsley and Mrs. Wilkinson, we have on the line, it was an HE edition last week, it's a special art edition of Driveway Catchphrase. We've got Mrs. Irwin and Mrs. Gordon on the line. Mrs. Irwin, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Mr. Lunn. How are you?
I'm not too bad, cannot complain. Mrs. Gordon, what about you?
Good. I'm great as well, yeah.
Good. So, Mrs. Irwin, let's hear your horn there so that everyone at home can hear when you buzz in.
Okay.
Perfect. And Mrs. Gordon? There we go. So one blast from Mrs. Irwin and a double blast from Mrs. Gordon there, if you think you know. So we know how this works. I'm going to read what Mr. Chips has been up to, and the first one who thinks they know the catchphrase can toot in with the answer. Okay, here we go. So, Mr. Chips is in New York at the minute. He is working in an urban charity project. It is situated 2 blocks north of West 52nd Street. And basically what it is, they are providing a refuge for abandoned goats. And they're trying to get the goats off the street because it's a real problem in New York. And Mr. Chips is working away with the goats of all ages, young goats, middle-aged goats, and they're actually waiting for a new arrival today, and it's actually a baby goat, which of course we commonly know as a kid. Oh, Mrs. Gordon.
Is it New Kid on the Block?
Well done, New Kid on the Block.
Brilliant.
Very good.
Well done.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so that's 1-0 to Mrs. Gordon. It's all to play for here. Mr. Chips is doing a beginner course in abseiling at Craigavon Leisure Centre. It's a 3-day course, and his instructor is a man called Gwyn. Before he begins, it's really important that Mr. Chips has to get used to all of the equipment that is used for abseiling. So Gwyn has to go through everything with him very carefully. He has to go through the belts, the clips, the harnesses, and really importantly, Mrs. Irwin, he has to go through the ropes. So Gwyn is making sure that he is showing Mr. Chips everything. Oh, was that a wee
showing? Yes, from me.
Mrs. Irwin, go ahead to make it one each.
Showing him the ropes.
Yes. Showing him the ropes.
Very good, Mrs. Irwin.
Very good, very good. This is fantastic. Now, it's always ended one apiece, which means we have to go to the third catchphrase. So this is to see who wins driveway catchphrase today. Okay. Mr. Chips is spending the day with Alan, the beekeeper, over in Bleary there. And Alan is introducing Mr. Chips to all of the bees by name. You've got Honey, you've got Stingray, and you have the Queen, and she's called Beauty. Now, Alan has had to tell Mr. Chips that you have to be really careful. Only one person is allowed to hold any of the bees, and that one person is an employee, and he is the official holder of the bees. But you'll never believe what happened, Mrs. Gordon. One of the queen bee actually took off from the holder's hand and flew directly into his eye. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you don't... What? Oh, that was a double toot there, Mrs. Gordon.
Is it beauty in the eye of the beholder?
Well done. Well done.
Brilliant. Well done.
That was a real favourite of mine, that one.
Brilliant.
Oh dear. So there we go, Mrs. Gordon. You have joined the club. Mr. Adley, Mrs. Walmsley, Mrs. Wilkinson, and yourself. I mean, this must be up there with the top 5 moments of your life so far.
Very much so, yes. I never forget this moment in time.
Oh dear. Mrs. Irwin, any plans for the rest of the week?
Well, tonight we're having a movie night.
Oh, lovely.
So,
what are you watching?
Star Wars Episode 9.
Fantastic. And Mrs. Gordon, what about you?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't really thought about what I'm doing tonight. I might do a wee bit of painting. I've started painting again now that I've got a wee bit more time, so I might get back to that.
I have to say,
I might just watch TV.
Yes. It's those seem to be high up on everybody's list at the minute, just watching TV. But I have to say, Mrs. Gordon, your week 3 challenge, week 4 or week 5 challenge from Miss Osborne there, the art one?
Oh yes, the art one, yes.
Absolutely
my Frida
brilliant.
Kahlo.
Oh, fantastic. Mrs. Irwin, did you see that?
Never gonna live that down.
Oh, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
It was.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much for closing the podcast this week. I hope that wasn't too stressful.
It was okay. It was fine. Yep, it was fine.
Right. Well, listen, take care of yourselves and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Care.
You take care.
All the best. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast.
Podcast number 4 signed off and completed. I just want to thank everybody who's been involved on the podcast this week for coming on, giving up their time, being open and honest, and playing rather silly games with me for our entertainment. If you haven't given us a follow yet at LJHS_podcast, why don't you head over now and do that? If you know somebody in our Lurgan Junior High School community who hasn't listened to the podcast yet, why not copy the link now and send it to them and get them to listen to it? This is us now for 2 weeks. We're going to try and do this every other week now, so I hope that's okay with you. We'll really look forward to bringing you more entertainment in 2 weeks' time, but for now, wherever you are, look after yourselves and stay safe.
Thanks for listening.